ça galope, ça s'accorde, ça shot, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, eastern, western, ça galope, ça put it up, east block, west block, a block, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, ça shot, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, eastern, western, ça galope, ça put it up, east block, west block, a block, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde.
Hello, I'm Mathieu from Ludovox.fr and I am here today with Victor from Mindclash Games. Hi.
Hi.
So we are there with your newest game. So it's not your newest. It's the upcoming game. It's called Perseverance.
It's Perseverance, that's correct. And actually I might start a bit from a step earlier, because it's not a game, it's actually a saga of games, which is why this is our most daring undertaking so far, I would say. So what you're looking at here is episode 1, but the whole Perseverance saga will consist of 4 episodes, and the story is it's telling the story of a group of shipwrecked survivors on a dinosaur island. Now, thematically, like as you see on the board, these are modern-day people. Like the ship is a modern ocean liner, but it got lost in a mysterious storm, and the island they arrived to is basically in another dimension, which is why it has dinosaurs. So the people realize that they have no way of going home, no way of contacting the outside world. So they decided, okay, they have to settle down because the ship is sinking, it's no longer safe. So they start to build up an actual community here, and the 4 games are telling the story of this community growing from a couple of frightened survivors and pioneers constantly being attacked by the dinosaurs on the island, all the way to them becoming a mighty civilization on this island. So that's the concept, and what's really unique about this is that each game will be a standalone game on its own, but they can also be played as a continuous campaign when each game has an effect. The outcome of each game will have an effect on the next one. But you can also play each one on its own, so outside of the campaign if you want to, because each game has its own distinguishing feature why you would want to play that over the others if you wanted to.
Do they use similar components? Like, for example, dinosaurs, will you find them from episode 1 until episode 4, or...?
Yes, there are quite a few similarities. For example, the core of every game, each of the 4 episodes, is dice placement. So in each game you will be placing dice, and the dice placement can work with neutral dice, but over time you will be converting the dice to your own color. For example, the red player can convert the white dice to red dice, which will help them in the area control, area majority aspect of the game, which is another overarching mechanism which is present in all 4 episodes. Essentially, in every episode, the board is divided into 2. There is one area where you are building the city, helping the survivors settle down. Later on, you will be constructing buildings, and you will also be placing your die here. So the die placement mechanism takes place here, and also the aforementioned area control mechanism. This stays roughly the same in all 4 episodes. You will recognize the mechanisms from the previous episodes, which also mean that you will have an easier time learning the new games, which was a big part of why we chose to go with this concept actually. But on the other hand, there is the other part of the board, which could be categorized as interacting with the island. I'm saying this because this part is vastly different in all 4 episodes. Now, in the first episode, it's about basically defending against the attacking dinosaurs who don't like us being here on their island and just want to drive us out. You can think about it a bit like tower defense style. So once the last dino in an area has gathered up, they will all attack us, and we have to rely on our walls, on our traps, and on our soldiers, and maybe even the leaders to defend against this attack, because if we cannot defend against the attack, the dinos will actually breach and start attacking the settlements that we placed in the other side of the game, in the community building area. So that's how the 2 areas interact in and interlock in very clever ways, I would say, because the scoring depends on how populous the areas are. You want to defend the areas, but you also don't really mind if the dinos trample some of your opponent's settlements, because at its heart, it's a competitive game. You are all aspiring leaders, crew members, former crew members of the ship, and you want to become someone, essentially the leader of this new society. So you do everything to impress the people. You're collecting followers, which are basically the victory points, and you're competing against other aspiring leaders in the process. But sometimes you're not enough on your own, especially, for example, in episode 1, you might need others to help protect against the incoming dino attacks, so you might rely on other people saving your own settlements, and for them it might just be worth it if the area is populous enough. So there are lots of interesting motivations behind the dino attack defense and the other part of the game, which is the settling and area majority part.
So you mentioned some carryover from one episode to the next. How does that take form? Do you have like a special outcome for each player, or is it a global outcome?
There will be global event. I must add before I get deeper into it that this part is heavily in development right now. We definitely want to avoid leading players snowballing their advantage, so we don't want to give resource advantages to players who did well in the previous versions, but they might have some extra things to start with, like buildings they already control in the second episode. And also, the outcome of each game might incite a global event that influences the basic setup of a subsequent episode.
So this game is going to be on Kickstarter in spring 2020, I believe. Are you going to release all 4 episodes in the Kickstarter?
No, since, like I said, each game is a standalone game on its own, and I might add, each game is comparable in complexity and component count to our previous games. Like, I would say episode 1 in complexity and also component count is a bit below Anachrony, but it's comparable. So all 4 games will be legitimate Mindclash games, which is why we chose to do 2 Kickstarters for them. One of these will be, like you said, in spring 2020. And that's going to be for episode 1 and episode 2. And later, likely early 2021, we'll launch the Kickstarter campaign for episode 3 and 4.
So you chose an undertaking that was, very ambitious for this one. You are known, Mindclash is known for games that are huge, like Tricarion is massive, Cerebria is also quite huge. So how do you develop those games? Does it take longer to develop those games, or do you have like maybe a development process that is special to Mindclash?
Well, it does take long, I must say. There's nothing special about it. It's just we pour countless and countless of hours into internal and external playtesting. As you might have noticed, like you said, we have big titles, but we don't release that many titles per year because we really do prefer quality over quantity. So we prefer to take our time with our games. We prefer to polish it until everyone on the team who is involved in the design and development says that, okay, this is the final form. We cannot be any happier with it, and we release it only then. And I think perseverance will be a great. Like you said, it's a risky undertaking. It's a challenge, but it's also gonna be huge if we can pull off what we want to pull off, and I think we will be able to because the story is really intriguing, the world is really intriguing. I think we have reached to a point where our world building is very much top notch, actually, and we want to put these skills and put these expertise to. Like, we want this to be our magnum opus, the pinnacle of our work, and I think we are on a good way to that, actually.
You seem to work as a studio rather than just a regular publisher. You know, developing everything, having an artist doing most of the work. I think Vilo Farkas works with you full time, right?
Yes, actually, there are 7 people working for us full time right now, but we are also working with a couple of subcontractors and freelancers. And Vilo, like you said, she is heavily involved in the art direction of our games, and also the graphic design and the user interface. But not all the artwork is done by her anymore. Like, for example, this artwork was done by someone else, by one of our independent artists. And also the character art. but the user interface and the iconography, it's all Villa's work because she knows that part of the game inside out. She's also involved in the game design enough that she can follow how the game develops and adjust the iconography on the fly to that. She's she has been with us, like you said, she has been with us since the beginning, and that's her specialty. She's very good at that part. And other than that, what's all being done in-house all the time is design and development. We for most of our games, including this one, we license designs. Anachrony is also licensed design, and this one as well. This one was designed by David Turtzi, Thomas van der Ginste, and Wolf Planke. They are two Flemish designers who designed Yido. And David, you probably know, he designed Anachrony for us and a bunch of other games for other publishers. But it's but Richard and myself are also heavily involved in the design and development of the game. So it's a huge common effort, but we really like to be deep into the design of the games because that's how we feel we can give that special Mindclash touch to these games.
Do you feel that Kickstarter is changing over the years? I mean, like buyers on Kickstarter, they could buy probably almost anything in the first years of Kickstarter, but now they are more probably they want more precise products. They are well informed. Do you see changes in Kickstarter?
I do actually. I do think that Kickstarter is not necessarily the place for small publishers to kickstart themselves actually. So that kind of defies the name and purpose because what I keep seeing is that there are established publishers who have a better chance of succeeding. But if you are an established publisher with a couple of successful campaigns behind you and also customer trust and a recognized brand behind you, then you have a lot better chance of doing much bigger campaigns than before. So I would say it went in a direction where the established companies can achieve more than before. But if you are new, you have no recognition, then you have a harder job to break into the scene, which is already very saturated with new titles every year. So in that sense, it's a bit sad because that's what Kickstarter was originally made for, and what I keep seeing is that it's being made. It's becoming more like a pre-order platform for established publishers.
Can we expect Perseverance to be in French? We know that Cerebria is going to be in France, thanks to Intrafin, which is a distributor there. We don't know about Trickerion yet, but maybe. I don't know. You tell me. And what about Perseverance?
Our experience with Kickstarters is that with Kickstarters for these complex games, I might add, is that if you add more languages to the mix, and to the mix I mean to the first print run right after the Kickstarter, then the already hugely complex process will become much more complex. So we've tried that in the past. It's not been the best experience. So since then, we are trying to avoid, we are actually actively avoiding printing other languages than English in our first Kickstarter print run. But afterwards, we are always making a retail version of our game, which we are eschewing some of the Kickstarter components in these games to make them affordable on the retail market. And those games we are actually actively seeking localization partners for, and that includes France as well. So yes, down the line, I think I can safely say that there will be a French version of Perseverance, episode 1, and then the later episodes as well. But not necessarily during the Kickstarter. But what we always do is translate the rules and try to make the games as language independent as possible. So even in this case, there will, as you can see here, there's a written turn sequence, which is very handy. We will translate that as well as the rules, and the rest can pretty much be played as is, without any language knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Victor, for that overview of Perseverance, season 1, episode 1, because the rest is going to come later, probably until 2021. Bye bye. See you on Ludovox.fr.
ça galope, ça s'accorde, ça shot, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, Eastern, Western, ça galope, ça pull it up, East Block, West Block, A Block, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, ça galope, ça s'accorde, ça shot, non-stop, ça galope, ça s'accorde, Eastern, Western, ça galope.